Samsung have finally done it. They've made me want to buy a Fold again. This is the new Galaxy Z Fold 7, and I reckon it's the biggest overhaul we've seen to their Folds in years. This is the Fold 6, and it's very nice, but it's also very expensive, and compared to the competition from Oppo and Vivo and Honor, Samsung really fell behind. Until now. I mean, the Fold 7 gives us a huge overhaul in terms of the design. We get the latest chips, it's thinner, it's lighter, it's faster. We have the same 200 megapixel main camera from the S25 Ultra, bigger screens, a tougher frame, less crease, and shipping with Android 16 and their OneUI 8 software, we're getting a whole bunch of new features as well. It is a significantly better phone, and here in the UK at least, it's the same price, except for the 1TB storage model, which now has 16 gigs of RAM, so they've increased that slightly. Although I believe it will be slightly more expensive in the US for various reasons. Let's not go into that. And actually, if you do fancy buying one, if you use my link below, you will get access to Samsung's pre-order double storage deal, and also some extra exclusive money back or credit, something like that. Anyway, is it worth buying? Because even if it's significantly better, it's still a lot of money, and it's still very much a Fold, and even if it's thinner and lighter and faster and has a nicer screen, it's not going to fundamentally change the way you use it. But hey, let's have a look. The headline upgrade with the Fold 7 has to be this new design. We're talking 4.2 millimeters thick when open, 8.9 millimeters when closed. That's compared to 5.6 and 12.1 before. That by itself is a significant gen-on-gen upgrade, but it's also 24 grams lighter, tipping the scales at 215 grams. For context, the S25 Ultra is 218. They finally caught up with the competition, and while technically Samsung can't claim the world's thinnest or the world's lightest foldable phone, if you take into account the camera bump, the camera module, compared to some other phones I've tested recently, like the Magic V5 from Honor, taken as a whole, it's actually a fair bit thinner. So the compromise we've always had when buying a Fold, the thickness, their weight, that's basically gone. Carrying it around in your pocket, holding it, using it, it feels just like a regular phone now, and that is a huge deal. The second thing you'll notice is this new bigger, wider cover screen. It's 6.5 inches, up from 6.3 inches before, and combined with this new 21:9 aspect ratio, this cover screen is actually 5 millimeters wider than last year's Fold 6. Particularly when you're typing, this is a good deal more comfortable, so another big upgrade in terms of the cover screen. It's also tougher. We have the same Gorilla Glass Victus 2 on the back, although now we have Gorilla Glass Ceramic 2 on the front screen, which is the same as we get on the Edge. Previously it was Victus 2 on the Fold 6. This is their latest third generation Armor Aluminium, which is also used in this new Flex hinge, which is a whopping 30% slimmer than last year's design. So it's tougher, but also because they have managed to make this design so much thinner, they can actually use 50% thicker ultra thin glass for the main tablet screen. And together with a new titanium lattice layer they're using underneath, not only makes the screen a little bit more durable, but it actually helps to reduce the crease. And with the Fold 6 and the Fold 7 side by side, it is a noticeable improvement in how subtle, how shallow the crease feels. It is still definitely there if you find the right lighting to sort of reflect off it, or you run your finger firmly across it, but it's noticeably shallower than before, so it's quite a nice little upgrade. What hasn't changed though is the IP rating, still IP48. We're getting a basic level of dust resistance, slightly better water resistance, but it's not as durable as a regular phone. And also other foldables have upped their game. The new one, Magic V5 for example, is IP59. Not the end of the world, but it would have been nice to see Samsung increase that IP rating with the Fold 7 as well. And it comes in 3 colors. Well, technically 4th. There's a mint exclusive online color, but here I've got the blue shadow, the jet black, and the silver shadow. I would probably buy the blue shadow, although I'm kind of sad there isn't the coral red that we get on the Flip 7. I've made a separate hands-on video with that, so make sure you have a watch afterwards. I really like that color. But going back to the screens, as I say, 6.5-inch cover screen, but it opens up to this new, even bigger 8-inch tablet screen on the inside. That's up from 7.6 inches last time, and it means we're getting around 11% larger screen area. And so this just feels even more impressive that you can carry it around like a regular phone, and it opens up to this huge screen. But otherwise it's the same screen. Dynamic 2X AMOLED as they call it, it's 1 to 120 Hz, tops out at 2600 nits of brightness, and sadly still no change to the PWM, the pulse width modulation. It's kind of hard to explain because it's not refresh rate, but it is also how fast the screen refreshes. But some people are really affected by the PWM on OLED panels, and only manufacturers like Honor and Oppo and Vivo, I think, and a couple other ones have actually improved their phones with a high PWM, and we've seen that for a couple of years now. It's not exactly new, but Samsung, Apple, Google, Google, they've not really done anything there. So that is in my wish list for the next one. I'll tell you what also hasn't changed, the battery size. It's the same 4400 mAh battery as the Fold 6, with Samsung claiming you'll get up to 24 hours video playback, which is slightly higher than last year thanks to the new more efficient chip and some display and software optimizations, but it's going to be pretty similar to last year. Which on the one hand is impressive because they've made the phone like 26% thinner and a whole lot lighter, so they've had to completely re-engineer the battery to fit it in the phone, so keeping the same capacity is actually pretty cool. But then when you consider, again, say the Magic V5, and I keep bringing that up because it is the latest foldable that's from a direct competitor, which will be launched globally later this year, that has a 5820, I think, milliamp-hour battery. And that's because a lot of these Chinese companies are using silicon carbon batteries, which at least for now, Google, Samsung, Apple, and the like just don't seem to want to use. So we're stuck at these relatively small capacities compared to some rivals. Obviously, there are questions about EU regulations and the long-term durability and even maybe safety of silicon carbon batteries. So I can kind of understand it, but if you're going to spend $2,000 on a new foldable phone, you also kind of want the best battery life, and I don't think the Fold 7 will give you that. And also charging, because that's not changed either. We're still looking at 25-watt wired, 15-watt wireless, and 7.5-watt reverse charging. So minimal change really to battery life and charging, which is a little bit disappointing. But again, given the new super thin form factor, it's far from a deal breaker. As you would expect, we do get a new chip with the Fold 7. This uses the full-fat Snapdragon 8 Elite for Galaxy, exactly the same as you get in the S25 Ultra, and it comes with either 12 gigs of RAM with 256 or 512 storage, or 16 gigs of RAM if you go for the 1TB model. And so unlike the Oppo Find N5, which also has the 8 Elite, but they've actually disabled one of the cores to sort of improve its efficiency and battery life in that form factor, we've got the proper uncompromised version in the Fold 7. And with that 4 Galaxy tuning as well, this could end up being the fastest foldable on the market. But is it going to throttle? I mean, it's so much thinner, and yet we have a more powerful chip than last year. They are using a new ultra-high thermal density graphite that's been applied over certain components in the vapor chamber inside, which I'm told will give us better heat dissipation versus last year's Fold 6. But this is something I'll have to test properly in my full review. And then there's the camera, which I've never really been that impressed by on the Fold series. I mean, they've had the obviously limitations with how big the camera module could be in this form factor, but despite the fact that we have, again, a 26% thinner phone versus last year, they've actually managed to squeeze in the same 200 megapixel main wide camera as you get on the S25 Ultra. Well, technically it's the same one they built into the Edge because it's actually a smaller module, but it's the same resolution, same sensor size, and on paper at least, it should be a big upgrade over the previous 50 megapixel wide camera. We also get a basically unchanged 10 megapixel telephoto lens for a 3x optical zoom, although Samsung say we may see some improvements thanks to the new ISP on the chip and their slightly improved Pro Visual engine. But then we also have a 12 megapixel ultra wide, and this is using a new sensor, and apparently it's 56% brighter, we get larger pixels, and it also supports autofocus for ultra wide macro photography. You'll also notice the under-screen camera is now very much not under-screen. It was a cool little trick that you can make the camera disappear on the old Folds, but I'm not against an improvement to the actual camera quality. And we are getting a different sensor, a higher resolution. You can also see it's got a much wider field of view. It's 100 degrees now, up from 85 degrees. And then finally, we have another 10 megapixel camera on the front cover screen. I mean, Samsung rarely changes the actual camera hardware, but this year we get a new main, new ultra-wide, new tablet in-screen camera, and we still get the benefits of OneUI and the ISP in the Snapdragon 8 Elite. And actually, they do say that their latest version of their Pro Visual engine will give us improved noise reduction, better low-light video, we can now shoot 10-bit HDR video, as well as giving us better textures and colors. It's not a night and day difference versus last year's Fold 6, but then chances are you're coming from a Fold 5 or 4 or something even older. We're also getting Android 16 with their OneUI 8 out of the box, which makes it one of the first phones to actually ship with Android 16. And this brings a whole bunch of updates, which I'll dive into in the full review, but it includes things like being able to share your screen with Gemini Live, better optimization for the larger screen. You've got circle to search during gameplay, so while you're playing, you can get tips and, I don't know, cheat codes without leaving the game. Also, games running the Vulkan API like Call of Duty, Diablo Immortal, Genshin Impact, these have all been fully optimized for the Fold 7. And obviously it wouldn't be a Samsung phone without their full suite of Galaxy AI tools, which I'm sure you're sick of hearing about, but their image generation, their writing tools, all that good stuff. And it's particularly useful to have all those things on a foldable where you can take advantage of the bigger screen. And as usual, Samsung offer a pretty much best-in-class 7 years of Android updates. I do have some bad news though. There is one thing that is missing from the Fold 7 that has been thrown out, unfortunately, and that is the digitizer, which means it does not support the S Pen, any stylus, which is a shame. I'm told that was a decision made to help get the phone thinner. Fair enough, but if you are someone who likes to use an S Pen, which of course was an optional accessory, you had to buy extra, the lack of stylus support may be a bit disappointing. They've also tweaked the case, so now it's just a single back panel with a screen protector that comes with it, rather than a separate little bit that goes around the front bezels. So they've kind of simplified the case. And of course also got rid of the space for the S Pen because it doesn't support it now. But still, even though it's the same battery, same charging, no S Pen support, and still very expensive, putting those to one side just for a second, it is one of the biggest updates we've seen to the Fold in a long time. I mean, we're getting an overhaul of the design, the latest chip, which should also slightly improve the battery life. Bigger, wider cover screen, bigger main tablet screen, much better cameras, particularly the main lens. 16 gigs of RAM now if you go for the 1TB model. The crease in the main tablet screen is more subtle now. They've also obviously improved the durability with that 3rd generation aluminium armor and also a flexed hinge, or whatever they call it, although obviously we haven't got any change to the IP rating. And probably some other things like it has Bluetooth 5.4. None of those things fundamentally change how you use a Fold, whether you want one. But if you do want one, Samsung has finally caught up with the competition in terms of the hardware, the design, the cameras. And then combined with OneUI 8 and their Galaxy AI and the software for the Fold, which I would argue is the best out there for a foldable phone, we could be onto a winner with the Fold 7. But what do you reckon? Would you be tempted to buy one, or maybe the new Flip 7 with that huge full cover screen, which just looks incredible? Let me know what you think of this in the comments below. And as I say, if you do fancy buying one for yourself, with the pre-order deal, you can get double the storage for free, and also I believe £50 off. I'll put all the details in the description. But thank you so much for watching, guys. Make sure you stay tuned for my full review, and I'll see you next time right here on the Tech Chat.